What's happening, guys? So we're going to go through bias today in this video and how we actually determine a bias for us to start looking at trades. For a bullish bias, on each time frame, we're looking at, have we traded into a bullish fair value gap? Okay, so price actually needs to come into these bullish fair value gaps for us to have a bullish bias. We do this on every single time frame. For us to be bearish, we need to be trading into a bearish fair value gap. A neutral bias is where we don't have a bearish or bullish bias, and that's basically if we're not trading into any fair value gap, or we've taken a high or a low from reacting from a bearish or bullish imbalance. So we've actually met that draw from that fair value gap on that time frame. So neutral biases we don't actually count as any influence to our overall bias. And then if we were to go from bullish to a bearish bias, we'd trade from a bullish fair value gap into a bearish one. And another key point to take from this video is we only mark bias up and actually decide what our bias is at 9:40 after the market open. 9:40 is because it's 5 minutes before our first macro trading window. If we was to make a bias at 9:30, the whole bias would just be thrown off once market opens, because we have Judas swings, so we might sweep one side of liquidity, then go back and sweep the other side of liquidity, and it just throws your whole bias off completely. So once price has actually settled down and it's swept either buy side or sell side, that is when we actually mark our bias up at 9:40, when price has settled down and the volume of market open has calmed down as well. So if we look at this trade from the other day, what I took a win on, if you look at this daily candle, we're not actually trading from a fair value gap. Previously, we've tapped into this bullish fair value gap here, but now we have actually met the draw of the high. So that would make the daily bias neutral. So we go ahead and we make a list of, so we're neutral on the daily bias here. And then we're dropping down to the 4 hour. We have actually tapped into this bullish gap previously, but then we've met the draw. Okay, we've took this high. So we're not actually anything on the 4 hour, so we're actually neutral on the 4 hour. Looking at the 1 hour, you can see what we've actually tapped into this 1 hour bullish fair value gap, and we've respected it. So this would make us bullish on the 1 hour. Then we look at the 15 minute. So on the 15 minute, you can actually see that we have inversed this bullish fair value gap. So that would actually make us bearish up to the next low or bullish imbalance. And we've actually tapped into this other 15 minute imbalance here. And we've also tapped into this 15 minute one here, which makes us bullish again on the 15 minute, even though we have inversed this one here. So we're bullish. Then we look at the 5 minute. So again, you can see that we've actually inversed this bullish fair value gap on the 5 minute, and we've also inversed this one. So we're bearish up to the next 5 minute imbalance or low. So we have actually tapped into this 5 minute fair value gap, so that makes us bullish on the 5 minute. So once we've actually written down all our results, what we look at is, if we're neutral, we just delete them off. That doesn't count towards our actual bias. So the 4 hour is also neutral, so we get rid of that as well. And then with the results, what we have left, we've got a bullish bias. So 3 out of 5 results bullish, so we are only looking at buys in this example. So then this is when we actually look to start looking at our entries and trades. Now we only trade within a certain macro time window, which is 9:45 to 10:15. So this is the window that now we've tapped into these fair value gaps and we've got our bias. This is when we're looking for entries, and we've got a whole entry model video that will be coming out, so look at that as well, but I'll run through it with you anyway. So we've got a bearish order block here that gets inversed with a breakaway fair value gap, and we've got a market structure shift. Then what we're waiting for is a tap back into this fair value gap to get an entry. So we would be long from here. And a valid stop on this is because we've got a breakaway fair value gap, we can actually have the stop at the low of the fair value gap. And we're targeting a 1 to 2, which would be this high. We only target 1 to 2s. Or the nearest high, what gives you a 1 to 2. But in this case, this nearest high gives us a 1 to 2, so that's all we'll be targeting. Now that I've took you through that example of when we actually look to take an entry and wait until after market open, we'll just have a recap on what we're looking for. So for us to be bullish, we'll trade into a bullish fair value gap. Bearish, we trade into a bearish fair value gap. For a neutral bias, we're not in any fair value gap whatsoever, and we have actually taken a low or a high from an actual fair value gap, meaning that we're neutral. We've completed the objective of that fair value gap. For us to go bullish to bearish, we trade from a bullish fair value gap into a bearish one, and we only mark our bias at 9:40 after the market open, and every 5 minutes before each macro we redo our bias. And also, off the list of our actual results, let's say if we've got a daily bias of neutral, we can eliminate that completely. And then with the 4 results we have left, we've got bearish on the 4 hour, but the rest are all bullish. That means we're only bullish. We're looking for buys. We've got 3 out of 5 or 3 out of 4 actual bullish results, so we're only looking for buys. I hope that video helped on how to actually determine a bias, and thanks for watching.